Hey there everyone, it's been a while. This video is going to be a little bit different. It isn't a guide or build or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about where I've been, how I feel about Destiny right now, and the future of this channel. For starters, there was a storm where I live, and some trees fell on some buildings, and, well, dealing with everything, especially the insurance company, has been a total nightmare. On top of that, I got super sick. I don't really feel comfortable going into the details, but I was laid up for about a month and a half. And so finally, as I'm ready to get back into making videos about Destiny 2, Bungie lays off a whole bunch of workers. Great. You know, I thought it had been going in a great direction. With Into the Light and the final shape, everything was looking absolutely amazing. The builds afforded by prismatic and exotic class items were super interesting. I thought that Bungie had finally gotten a handle on what it was doing. Until I started playing the episodic content, and I realized we were in for a rough one. Look, Destiny 2 has three fundamental problems, and with all these layoffs, I don't see them ever getting fixed. The first and most egregious problem is greed. Greed is why so many new things are accompanied by an obnoxious grind, and why the other two problems won't ever get fixed. Their fundamental goal is to make money, specifically on the Eververse store. The problem is that most of what's on the Eververse store is garbage. A person will only spend $15 to $20 on a costume if they feel invested enough. Now, they used to create investment through story and character and great experiences. Now, everything has a grind. Some might say grinding is a part of a loot game, and to a degree that's true, but the reward is usually commensurate with the effort. If I grind a double-penetrating Unkempt Herald in Borderlands 2, then I am much more powerful as a result. It doesn't work that way in Destiny, and they've been doing this since Destiny 2's launch, back when they throttled XP to try and get you to buy loot boxes. They've done it with every new thing since: crafting, transmog, stasis, and now exotic class items. And you notice there's a huge uptick of this stuff after Beyond Light, you know, when they sunset a whole bunch of content. Think about it. What's the reason for taking away macro farming in the Pale Heart? It doesn't hurt anyone. The Pale Heart is instanced PvE content, and the builds that you can get from it aren't really all that game-breaking. There's no legitimate reason other than this does not create the false sense of investment that we want. The other two problems are basic issues with PvE and PvP, and those won't be fixed because they're too costly. Greedy leadership is much more interested in psychologically manipulating its players to care about these major issues. I mean, other games do this as well. I don't want to pretend that Destiny is the only one who does this, but at least those other games will tackle these issues, and the ones that don't, die. On the PvE side of things, I find myself not caring about getting new items and doing new content. Many say that the main issue in PvE is power creep, and I personally disagree. It's a loot game. The whole point is to kill enemies to get new items that let you kill even stronger enemies to get even stronger items. Power creep isn't a bug, it isn't even a feature, it's the point. The problem is that this kind of gameplay loop requires runway. Games like World of Warcraft have decades worth of power creep, and yet they manage to work. And it may seem like this is an apples and oranges comparison, and it kinda is in terms of gameplay, but the fundamental goal of loot games remains the same across genres. Current content in that game is appropriately challenging, and old content is appropriately easy. Like if I go into Molten Core with my max level, well, she's not max level anymore, but if I go into Molten Core with my current level character, if I fart on raid bosses, they die. You don't get that in Destiny 2. Everything feels the same. Bungie simply does not make enough content for the loot game gameplay loop to work. I've been banging this drum since Season of Dawn among my friends, and it was one of the motivating factors for making this channel in the first place. Destiny 2 was made to have a life cycle of like a couple years, and it shows. Any new content added to the game puts stress on the engine and threatens to break the game as a whole. In order to make it work, they have to remove content and rely on content scaling. Content scaling keeps all areas relevant and makes the game feel bigger than it actually is. The problem is that it keeps the entire experience in a box and kind of ruins the notion of power progression that you normally get from a loot game. They have to constantly rein in power, and it undercuts long-term play. Like, why go through the effort of getting a god roll or an exotic if its power won't make a discernible difference? And when its power does make a difference, that power is taken away. It's been like that for years, and every suggestion to fix it has been bad. Sunsetting, crafting, taking away crafting, sunsetting 2.0, all of it does not address the fundamental issue. Everything feels like a chore, not a pursuit. How can you have a pursuit if you aren't going anywhere? Sunsetting weapons just makes it so that instead of getting stronger weapons to kill stronger enemies, you get the same weapons to kill the same enemies. Getting rid of crafting makes it so that you feel resentful after the 20th run of a dungeon, raid, or activity, and when you finally get the thing you're after, the thing that you automatically think is, finally, I'm done with this crap. Because you're never getting a thing to take on a new challenge, you're getting a thing to remain at par with the game overall as they constantly play musical chairs with what's good and what's not. When it comes to PvP, I think the major issue, in a slew of major issues, is that this is a low tick rate peer-to-peer game with a very specific game feel. The minute you introduce any amount of lag, the game feel falls apart. You have to do connection-based matchmaking. The problem is that this matches up seasoned vets against entirely new players. The newer players get stomped, and there's this attrition that happens over time, where eventually all that's left are the great players and cheaters. I mean, like it or not, that's human nature. That leads to the same issue that you have with skill-based matchmaking, with long wait times and bad connections. The solution to this is better netcode and/or dedicated servers. Something that allows similar skill players to match up against each other quickly and with good connections. Now there's this type of player who absolutely hates that. They only want to be matched up against people that they can beat easily. My instinct is to kick them to the curb because every competitive thing has rankings and appropriate matching based on those rankings. Someone's overinflated ego around their KD and childish inability to cope with defeat is not what should be directing these decisions. That said, sometimes you want to play people of all strengths. I think that if you offered casual lobbies or playlists, then you'd get that. But for any of it to work, the most important thing is to fix connection issues. Now, I've worked in production, and I know that challenges arise that the audience could never know about or understand. Given how often Destiny has been portrayed by the TWAB as this game practically exploding at the seams, it seems pretty obvious that these issues require significant investment in terms of both money and personnel. And I don't think they're going to make that kind of investment at this point. All this means that I have no interest in playing Destiny at the moment, and so I have no builds for you. I mean, yeah, I could theory craft some crap for you, but I prefer to test my builds before I recommend them. Fundamentally, Destiny 2's moment-to-moment gameplay is truly excellent. It's just the environment around that moment-to-moment gameplay is not something I want to engage with. Luckily, Destiny 2 is not the only looter shooter on the market, and we can shift focus to other games for a while. I've been playing a lot of First Descendant lately, and I feel like I finally understand that game well enough to give competent advice. I've also been dabbling in Borderlands since the Awful movie and the Borderlands 4 announcement, so maybe I'll make some videos around that as well. Although, the community around Borderlands is pretty robust, and I feel like I wouldn't have much to add that's useful. So they'd probably just be opinion pieces, maybe even playthroughs. I don't know. But with that said, I know I'm not feeding the algorithm like I should. This is more of a part-time hobby for me at the moment. If the channel grows and I can justify devoting more time towards videos, the schedule will become much more robust. For now, with my job and everything that's going on, I can only make about one video a week. With that kind of a schedule, I think it's better to ask you guys for feedback on what you'd want to see. So once this video goes live, there will be a poll on the next subject. The poll will last for a week, and that will decide the subject of the next video. Thank you for your time, your patience, and I hope to see you in that next video.